What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Chris, as always with me.
Lee.
And today we are diving into Handmaid's Tale, Season 1, Episode 6.
Yes.
As you know, or if you are just turning in for the first time, welcome. We are a show about shows. We never claim to be experts, but we love to chat about this stuff and kind of theorize and try to fit out and see what happens. And you guys join in with the comments and fill us in. A lot of you have either read the books or watched the show before, especially when it comes to Handmaid's Tale, which we're talking about today. And without spoiling it, I've been doing a really good job of like helping us understand it and fill it in, especially from a female's point of view, which we will never have. And so just been really thankful for that. So if you're tuning in for the first time and you like the episode, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button as well. And we're chat about it and you can in the comments as well. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, so it starts off with the Mexican delegation and we get a whole bunch of flashbacks to the start of Gilead.
Yes.
Which was a whole lot of, I was gonna say fun. None of it's fun. It's an interesting insight for sure.
No, I thought interesting was what I would go with, because we get the inner monologue of June where she talks about what happened. And then in this episode, we get like the behind the scenes, like Fred and the actual people who did this thing. And obviously Serena was a big part of that, but we got this actually in this episode, her like get cut out and get pushed away. Crazy shit. Later in the episode, she did something that I thought, based on the response of the room, she was about to get in a lot of trouble. But instead, it was a very different reaction than I was expecting, but we'll get there.
I was excited to see, after watching this episode, I was like, ooh, I can't wait till we get to talk to Chris about this. Like, what's he think of how Serena has fallen so far from who she was? Because we've only got to tell you about it. This is the first time you actually got to see it.
Yeah. No, I'm very confused by how willingly she gave up. It seemed very, like, for such a strong, dominant woman, writer, leader, like writing about a movement, like being a figurehead of it, her to just give up the reins and kind of almost just bow down. When Fred came out of that office in this later in the episode and says to her, oh, sorry, they won't hear you, they won't talk to you. And she's basically like, oh, thanks for trying, and goes home. And kind of accepts the fact that she won't have a voice. I struggled with that, because she still had power, in my opinion, in that scene, where she could have changed the way things happened, but she chose to just let herself become voiceless. And I was interested, like I was confused, if anything, on why she was so accepting of that. And maybe you guys can help me out in the comments with some insight on why would she accept that so willingly. She's such a strong, independent woman, and then she kind of just was like, okay.
So my thought, from knowing all that I do know of this series and what we saw in season 6, which made it make way more sense to me, because again, it's been years since I've seen these, is that she just did that whole boiling frog. It's going to be this theme for this whole thing, is she had the whole boiling frog moment. I'll get back to it. And then as we were talking season 6, she's talking about, oh yes, I'm doing something. I'm getting the women rights again. I'm doing this. I don't think she expected them to take all the rights away from women the way that they did. It was just slowly pulling threads of freedoms until she had nothing that she could do.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, because as soon as she walks away, the other soon-to-be commander walks out and is just like total gaslighting. He's like, oh yeah, we gave them too much responsibility and it overwhelmed them. So we're just going to take that all away now and just let them go back to the traditional way, because that's better for them. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, whoa, like that just happened pretty quick.
Because you got to think about it. She is so excited because, hey, look, they finally got all the stuff through. They're finally becoming the power and authority that they wanted. She doesn't want to make waves in that point. And she's like, always, I can just get more back later. We can ease back into it, right? And I think that they just never came for her. I think that might be where her thought would be. I can't say because I'm not her, but that's what I visually pick up myself from watching this. But let's go back to the Mexican delegation. June gets invited in. She's a little sit down with Serena's like, be good, say smart things, right?
Yeah.
And then she gets brought into the room of the Mexican delegation and goes and addresses the man in the room.
Flores, who is a spy, we find out. But yeah, that was, like I said, we turned the cameras on, but that was not expecting. In a series that's kind of really shown that men are in power and women have these subjugated, voiceless possessions, basically. For all of those men in that room who treat women like they are objects, to kind of be bowing down and kind of respecting a woman, that was a throw for me. And then June, obviously, was in the same boat I was walking into that room. room, not expecting it to happen. And so as soon as she realizes, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then she starts speaking to her. And then very clearly is very uncomfortable having to lie, but still is lying to protect herself. That's total self-preservation. I will, whether if she would have spoke up in that moment, nothing good would have come of it. And when she did have
outnumbered too.
And when she actually had the courage to speak up, it still meant nothing. And so that was heartbreaking too. I think it broke the leader's heart, the Mexican delegate that came. I think it broke her heart just as much as it broke my heart to hear her have to say, I can't do anything.
So I think it was important that she lied at the beginning, because my interpretation of the Mexican delegate's thoughts would be, all right, she said that she volunteered for this. They're happy. I can ease my conscience now.
Yeah.
That's what I feel the whole first part was.
She could ease her conscience in trading people for chocolate, you mean?
Yes.
That's a hard sell.
But it's not people that the end goal was for the delegation. It was to have babies.
Yeah.
Because the whole country is dying, specifically her town.
Well, she referred to it, the other Handmaid refers to it as red tags, right? But basically, the way I perceived that was they were going to trade, if everything works out, ultimately their goal is to trade fertile women from Gilead to Mexico for chocolate. Am I misunderstanding that? Is that?
No, that's what.
Oh, okay, well, that's like human trafficking. That's slip as hell.
It is. Devil's advocate. You have to imagine your country is dying, your people, your society, everything is dying. That line blurs and moves.
And right, I get that. And we very clearly saw that when later in the scene, when the woman was speaking with June, and she basically says to her, I am doing this because I live in a small, beautiful town, and I'm responsible for these people. And it's dying. We haven't had a baby alive in 6 years. So yeah, I get that in why she'd be willing to do that. Also, as someone who has none of those stakes on my table, that's really fucked up, man.
I agree. It's completely fucked up. I'm just giving my perspective based on how I see it from her.
I get how this is playing out, right? I get how people can get pushed to such an extreme that this could be something they're willing to accept. Get that. It doesn't make it any less fucked up to me.
All right. So what do you think of the Mexican delegate? I can't remember her name. That's why I keep saying that.
Yeah. I only know because I watch it with subtitles because it helps me remember. So it lets me know Flores. So I knew his name. It popped up a couple times, but it never really caught hers.
Okay. What do you think of her throwing Serena's quote back at her from her book?
Yeah. So there was a couple of times in this episode, especially when it involves with the Mexican delegation, that I thought Serena was about to get herself in some serious hot water. She saved herself pretty well with that one, where she was like, basically asking her, like, you wrote this book and you were, so about women's rights. Why are you so accepting of this now? And she basically says, to have what we want, we must make sacrifices, and our God's always asked for those. And he's obviously rewarded us very fruitfully because of it. So we're on the right path. So she saves herself there. But later on too, when they're doing the dinner and she takes over and does Fred's job, and all the commanders are like looking at her like, who the hell does she think she is? I thought for sure that she was about to get in some hot water. Was not expecting that to be the thing that turned Fred on. And then he was like wanting to be with her. I was like, that's weird. But hey, like the dude found some sort of emotion, I guess.
Well, that goes to what I was saying before that's why June and him were meeting up in his little library thing, playing games, is because he wanted more of an equal. Even though she's not an equal, she's role-playing an equal in that when they're in the office because it's behind closed doors. He castrated his wife.
Yeah, so she can't be an equal.
Yes. And so by her stepping up into the equal role again, it's like, all right, there's the person I miss. And this is another part I want to ask you about, because we got to see all the flashbacks. Do you see how different Fred and Serena are together and how different they are as people? They are mostly decent people at that point.
Back in time, yeah.
Aside from, obviously, the stuff that they're plotting and conspiring, they truly show up as normal individuals during that time.
Yeah, I mean, in the film, when it's just Fred and Serena talking to each other, their ideals seem pure. They're like, it's a little bit zealous, but they do seem like they're looking for improvement, not the indentured servitude of a world, right? They're looking to actually improve the world and go in a better place. It isn't until, I believe, like we start to see Serena being cut out of the picture and Fred kind of molding himself to be more like the commanders and more like the people in power, that you start to this break and this distance between them. Because that's what I'm starting to see on camera is like Fred's just he's a coward and he's looking for power, and he's becoming something I don't know if he wants to be, but he's definitely becoming something he wasn't, because he's absorbing himself into these belief systems that these other commanders have. And I don't don't know much about Fred's past, but what I'm seeing is that Serena loved a man who loved her deeply and had like some really good beliefs at the time. Those beliefs, however, shifted greatly, and we're seeing that directly in this episode where he's starting to agree that, yeah, women do have too many rights and we should back it down. Where he's also telling his wife how amazing she is and how intelligent she is and how she should write another book. And then like the very next scene, he's agreeing to take away their rights, right? So I believe that he's a weak man. And because of that weakness, he is allowing the situation around him to adapt his belief, which it's a human thing, right? Like not to be strong and hold one's ideals with integrity when you're outnumbered is one of the hardest things to do. And so I don't fault him, but I'm also like, this is the beginning of the end for this man. Yeah.
So he created a machine which let's personify as a monster, which is Gilead. And in creating that, he has to shape and mold himself just to stay relevant and alive. So it goes from their ideals to becoming a slave to them.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a Frankenstein style story where like you set out to create life and create this thing that could save people and ultimately become the thing that destroys it all. Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to talk about Scrabble because that was an interesting scene. You brought it up and it triggered my mind to go there. So we got to see the first time that Fred didn't get what he wanted and how he reacts to that.
Oh, he got what he wanted.
Not until she decided to play ball at the door though.
Yeah.
Because she was very tuned out, thinking about Nick, thinking about other things, and he caught that and he was like, "Oh, you don't want to play this
privilege."
Game. Yeah, you don't want to play this game with me.
Being in this room is a privilege.
Yeah. Am I boring you? He said. Like, oh shit. But yeah, then she like goes to the door and we see her like go through the emotions of like putting the face on, becoming the handmaid, doing what he wants. But ultimately the kiss isn't what he was looking for. There wasn't enough there, so he sent her on her way.
The first time. The second time I think there was.
Oh, really?
I think she was fantasizing about Nick while she was kissing him the second time with the more passion. And he saw that he had one control there. So his power move was, all right, good girl, go away. And then reward again next time. It's training, like training a dog.
Yeah, like I said, he's very much the predator-prey type, so he likes having that, like the cat and mouse game that he plays, with June especially. I don't see it with Serena. Serena, the only time I've seen him even like have any kind of emotion to her is when she actually like revolts against it and stands in her power. It's like the opposite of it.
Well, if everything is easy all the time, you don't want that.
Yeah.
Your brain actively rebels against it.
Yeah, human nature is to want the thing you can't have. There's a lot of different psychological things that fall into that, but yeah. So Scrabble was a different scenario this time. We didn't get to see the June manipulate him. We actually got to see him take that power back, manipulate her, and then send her on her way.
Oh, I think she did a little bit of her own manipulation there too, though.
Was it? Or, okay, manipulation 100%, but I think it was more of a self-preservation. She realized in that moment that she needed to win back his favor or things were not going to be staying on the, like at least a decent path for her.
She could have given him the win right there and then come back and did whatever and let him cool down. Because as you see, he's drinking a whole lot more. He's panicking. He's having trade deals and stuff like that. And so he's freaking out. So I think she took the opportunity to get good in his favor right then and there so that she could be the one to ease him. So she, in turn, is training him as well, in my mind.
Fair enough.
So the confession, we talked a little bit about it earlier to the trade delegation when they're just the three of them in the room.
Yeah, June's going out for her morning walk. The delegation walks in. She gives her the chocolate. And then June, as she's about to leave, decides, well, first let's back up because she speaks to Nick. Like she's losing it. She doesn't know. She feels very out of integrity. She's like kind of losing her mind a little bit. And so she storms up to Nick's apartment and is inventing on him and being like, hey, I shouldn't have lied. I should have told the truth. Like she unloads on him. And he basically tells her what we've talked about. Yeah. Saved your life. You would have gotten killed. Like you did all the things you needed to do to survive and be alive today.
Also, it's a picture of why Nick justifies what he does on a daily basis, in my mind.
Yes, very much self-preservation for many of the lower guys. And you, especially in season 6, you see a lot of Nick acting on self-preservation. He's a coward in a lot of ways. And unfortunately that ultimately, happens later, but I don't want to get there. Okay.
So the assistant guy, one that she originally thought that was in charge of the Mexican delegation, what'd you say his name was again? Flores, yes. As soon as the woman in charge leaves the room, he walks up to her and like, hey, look, your husband's alive.
She doesn't believe him at first too, right? Because she's very convinced that the gunshots were his death. But he's able to name, address, like call him out who he is, and obviously gets her attention with that. And so we get left with the fact that she may or may not write a note, right? She has a piece of paper and a pen. We don't see her write anything, but there'd be a great chance to send a message if she can. Yeah. So that's really, other than that, the biggest thing that really weighed on me with that whole scene is the fact that even with June's confession, even with her taking having the courage to put her life on the line and share the truth.
I can't help you.
I can't help you. And I'm still gonna take this deal because I got to save my city. It's damn, all of that for nothing. That's crazy.
But the assistant's the ones that's I want to help you. Please let me help you.
Yeah.
He's begging her is how I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we find out that not everybody, that there's people looking to help in every area, not just you have Nick and Guess out of Gilead who will help, but will ultimately preserve his own life. You have Mayday, who we've heard about when Emily was talking about it. We had that was another thing too.
I'm not there yet. But what I want to bring up is what's going through June's mind when the assistant dude, Flores, is asking her to help her, right? Is this a trap?
Right.
Because that's what I thought the very first time I saw that. And I got the same feeling again, even though I know better later on, right? Yeah. Is this a trap? I would be thinking that the whole time, especially the way my brain works. My brain's freaking paranoid, especially from the military.
Yeah. No, and I think it was written to be perceived that way because I also at first was oh, this could be a trap. Why would he? But then when you think about earlier in the episode, he asks June what her real name is in the office. He's very curious without showing it, who she is and who she was before she was a handmaid, which is the only thing that later on I was oh, he's actually looking for her. And that's why he has that information. He's almost sent to talk to her. So that was an interesting little take. I'm why are they specifically looking for June?
They also mirrored that with Nick, with the whole name thing. Remember?
Enlighten me.
Oh, he calls her Offred. And she's that's not my name.
No.
And she kind of breaks down, and then he's do you want a glass of water? Just to defuse the situation a little bit more. And then she opens up and says, my name's June Osborne, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that important to bring that up, too. Okay. And then we have to go to the whole lineup of the handmaids where Serena is doing the inspection of them before that whole dinner. Forgot about that part. But they line them up, and she's get rid of the ones that are imperfect. Reason I didn't want to forget this part is when Janine had her little breakdown. It's the first time we truly see Aunt Lydia break character when she gave her the kiss on the cheek. I'll bring you a whole tray of cookies or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't want any of the ones that bore the scars of the labor it takes to be in Gilead as this indentured servant slave. I don't know what to call it.
Basically a slave, yeah.
But that is the first time Aunt Lydia truly shows affection for Janine.
Yeah.
And I want to know your thoughts
on it. I
on it.
thought it was out of character, and I thought that it took me a second because for me, season 6 is where Aunt Lydia had her revelations of how wrong her thought process was. But for what I just watched in this episode is Aunt Lydia realizing that there are flaws to it already.
Do you remember when we were reviewing season 6 and I was Serena, I'm still iffy on whether she's her redemption arc, but I'm fully on board for Lydia? This is why. This is where it starts.
So Aunt Lydia, me, is a confusing character at this point because she is such a believer that she is willing to go to extreme violence to see the result that they're looking for, which is more babies inside of Gilead, and that this is a sacred duty. But she's also having very clear signs that she's having to work around mentally in front of us. That's not the case. This is not a sacred duty. These are not a revered position to be honored. This is slave. These are slaves. And you mutilate them and beat them into submission to do what you want. This is not an honored position. And you can see she's working it out. She's no, we're supposed to honor all of them. And she's well, we're not putting, what did she say? You don't put the bruised apple to the top of the barrel, right? And so it's just and she's in her mind trying to figure it out. And you can see she knows
pain.
She knows it's wrong.
She does.
And so I was okay, I still have 5 more seasons
with her, yes.
Of her, to me, for her to start figuring it out in season 1 and not do something about it till season 6, I feel I would think the opposite of what you were saying, where if you show no signs of wanting to change something that you see as wrong for 6 seasons and then all of a sudden do something, I would be less likely to want you to have redemption than someone who is battling that every step of the way. And I don't know the gap, so maybe that will happen.
Not yet.
But we're filling the gap in now. But yeah, so who is aware of what's wrong but chooses to turn a blind eye to it, and then ultimately when things are in their favor decide to do something, less likely to have, for me to want to see them win scenario like this than the person who's trying to step up and do something every chance she gets.
Yeah, Lydia is one of those love-hate characters, right? And Janine is the common thread that brings her back to her humanity and the only thing where she ever showed her weakness. You're going to see a whole lot more of that.
Yeah. I think Janine's innocence is also a huge thing for Aunt Lydia, because Janine's not rebelling. Janine's not like acting out because she, like, out of hatred. She, like, in this scene, you saw her, she was genuinely sad. Like, she was like, I've done nothing wrong. Why can't I go with everybody else? Why can't I be a part of the party? And that's when you see Aunt Lydia being like, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I will bring you the sweets like we talked about. But that to me, again, without harping or going down that same road again, that to me was confusing more than like rooting for Aunt Lydia. I got by it. I'm like, man, there's got to be some cool stuff that I'm missing that Aunt Lydia is going to do that's going to make me want to root for her. Otherwise, like, I think she's just
off and on. It's off and on. Like I said, Ginny is just the common thread that keeps bringing her back to humanity. But I don't want to dwell on that much. So I also think that Ginny not being there was a blessing for her, because as we see later on,
the kids.
Yes, all the kids come out. You see all the handmaids' faces.
Yeah, I thought for sure one of them was going to react.
I did too.
Yeah,
even though I knew.
Yeah, they went straight like zombie, like almost like the dead inside would be a great way to say it. Like the souls left their eyes. They were just staring soulless at what they know had been taken from them. I'm sure not every child there was taken from a handmaid. Some of them may have been, like Hannah, where they were just ripped and brought to a different home. But there were some babies in there, I guarantee, that were directly produced by a handmaid sitting in that room. And that was, I couldn't even imagine having to sit there, straight face, act proper, so you don't get killed. And then you watch the thing got ripped from you, part of your heart running around, right? Like, oh my God.
And you saw Serena's motivations there also, where looking at the kids, you can see the longing of wanting her in that moment as well. Yeah. You see some people kind of horrified, but also joyed that there were children, like the Mexican Trade Delegation.
Oh, they were super excited, but they also haven't seen a child in 6 years.
Yeah.
So when we got that information, it made sense. Yeah.
But so disheartening. But we've got Luke alive, and I guess.
Well, we've got the hint that he's alive. We don't know what condition he's in yet. We don't know where he is. Obviously, I've seen season 6. I know he's alive, but I don't know anything about him right now. As far as I understand, he got shot. So like,
and he's an adulterer.
Yeah, and he fell in love with June while he was married. So, but yeah, that's really like where they leave us, is like, Luke's alive. There's nothing we can do to help you, and thanks for making this trade delegation go over well.
Yep.
Yeah, appreciate you guys being with us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that like button. If you're brand new and haven't subscribed yet, or been tuning in and haven't subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. It's a little click for you, but helps us out greatly, and it shows your support. So I really appreciate it. And as always, we'll chat with you guys down in the comments below. And if you're looking for more content and want to join us on some more videos, we've got tons of playlists of stuff that you could check out and just continue down this rabbit hole with us. So we'll see you on one of those videos. Peace.
Find the strength hiding in each battle scar. You're not who you were. You've already come far.